Fleetwood Mac and Little Lies on BBC Radio Sheffield. This is Steve White, Saturday Breakfast, 8 minutes past 8. Now, the story that's dominated the news this week is the formation of the new coalition government. There's been wall-to-wall coverage on TV and radio, and in all the papers as well, of what's been called a new era in British politics. But what do the new generation of voters make of it? I'm joined in the studio by two teenagers, Harrison Carter and Aisha Nageen, who are members of the UK Youth Parliament. Morning to you both.
Morning.
How have you found this election then? Rather exciting, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's been really exciting and it's been really interesting too. And the results were a total surprise to me personally. And I think the election will bring about new changes and new beginnings.
What is it about politics that keeps you interested, both of you? Harrison, I'll ask you first.
I think it's the variation in view, and it's the fact that I think democracy is very important in this country. I mean, one of our jobs on the Youth Parliament is to try and get young people involved in politics, because politics affects everyone's lives, and it's about making them notice that. But to people who have noticed it, it's why I'm involved in politics, because I know it affects me quite a lot.
So tell me a bit more about the Youth Parliament. How does that work?
It's an organisation for youth, run by youth and for youth aged 13 to 19 years old, and we basically represent the voice of the youth of today.
And does that voice get listened to? People higher up actually take notice of what the UK Youth Parliament has to say?
Yes, well, we meet with MPs and we've met with ministers and lots of decision makers, and we have regional and national campaigns which have been really successful in the past.
How new is this, Harrison, the UK Youth Parliament?
The Youth Parliament was set up in 1997, and it kind of found its feet in 1999.
Right.
And then from then it progressed. It was a very small organisation set up by Andrew Rowe, who was a late Conservative MP. As I said, it was very small. It grew, and from just about October last year, actually, it kind of exploded as one of the main voices of young people, one of the main democratic voices of young people.
So did it take a while for MPs to actually take notice of it and actually give it any time and attention?
It took quite a while for that. I mean, that was inevitable. That was going to happen anyway, because young people, because we can't vote, the argument could be that, do we necessarily have kind of this democratic voice? But because we prove we have that democratic voice, a lot of MPs now do listen to us, and we've got a lot of channels into government departments and things like that.
Aisha, how does the election process work for the Youth Parliament?
Well, in every constituency, like ours is Sheffield, there's elections, and this year in Sheffield there were 15 candidates who wanted to be elected, and they all wrote manifestos, and the manifestos were sent out to schools and youth centres, and people voted for which people they wanted to be elected, and there were 3 elected members and 3 deputies, and in total we received over 10,000 votes in Sheffield.
Wow, and what kind of things did you put on the manifesto?
Well, I personally wrote things about like promoting equality and diversity across the city, and also continuing to support anti-bullying action groups.
And what about you, Harrison, on your manifesto?
My manifesto ran on 3 points, which were kind of a fairer society, a more involved society, and a supportive society for young people. So that was about abolition of tuition fees, it was about votes at 16, and it was about giving young people the opportunity to go onto youth councils and onto youth groups where they can have a say.
Well, that's an interesting one, bringing voting age down to 16. Is that something you believe quite heavily in, then?
It is. I'm quite passionate about that. The arguments are, of course, that we can pay taxes at 16 years old, and of course with consent of parents we can get married. We can also join the armed forces. So shouldn't we have the kind of right to vote and decide on who sends us to war, on who allows us to do these things? So I think it's an important issue, and it's also quite a controversial issue as well. I mean, in this new coalition government we've got, the Liberal Democrats are quite strongly supportive of votes at 16, but then we've got the Conservatives who aren't necessarily so supportive of it. I mean, I don't want to put words into their mouth, but that's what's been suggested. So,
what do you make of this coalition government? Did you? I'll ask you both this question. Did you see this coming, Nick Clegg getting into partnership with David Cameron?
I personally didn't expect it, and I think the alliance between the two parties is going to be really quite interesting to see what happens. And I guess we'll just have to see in the near future whether it's going to be a good change or a bad change, because I do think there will be a lot of change occurring and the country will significantly change.
There seems to be a lot of chemistry between the two, don't there? They've been on TV side by side quite a lot this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, but I was expecting a hung parliament from the start, but I wasn't expecting for Nick Clegg to become Deputy Prime Minister. I wasn't expecting for that particular coalition to have been made. So, I mean, it's quite a historic moment, and they do look well together on camera. They're both the same age, you know, they've both got... They're both very charismatic.
They both look similar as well.
They're both very photogenic. You know, these are the kind of politicians we get nowadays, very image-like politicians. You know, they look good.
And of course, the fact that he's a local MP is even more of an interest to us, isn't it? So what about your aspirations then? Do you both have ambition to go further in politics?
Yes, well, I maybe want to be an MP later on in life, but at the moment I want to pass my GCSEs and go on to A-levels and then go to university too.
And continue making a difference with the youth parliament as well.
I always want to represent the young people's views wherever I am, and I want to continue doing youth parliament work.
Is politics a future for you?
I'm at the moment more interested in studying medicine first off, but I would be very interested in going into politics afterwards. I mean, politics is, as I said earlier, it's very diverse, so being in any job setting, you can get involved in politics anywhere else. But at the moment, obviously, concentrating on A-levels and also on some political stuff we've got going on in Sheffield at the moment with regard to our campaigns in Sheffield.
Do you feel young people are having more of a voice these days now than they did, say, maybe 10, 20 years ago?
Yeah, that's a fact, I think. It's a fact that young people are having more of a say now. It was hard to get to this point, and it's still hard sometimes. People don't, as I said earlier, recognise us as a voice, as a genuine voice. But now we've got to this point, and now we've gained some national status as a youth parliament. We're kind of showing that young people do have a say, and that it's quite mature, and that we've got quite, genuine ideas.
You both seem very passionate about what you believe in. Thanks a lot for coming in this morning to talk to us. Really appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from you again sometime in the future.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. It's BBC Radio Sheffield, 8:15.